Greetings, guys. Today, we are so honored to have on the Visionary Podcast, where vision meets the world, the voice of Westport, Mr. Dan Woog. We're going to talk about Dan's beginnings, where he was born and raised, what makes him tick, how he started 06880, which we all follow, and what his vision is. So, Dan, welcome to the Visionaries Podcast. I am so honored to have you as the premier inaugural guest of the Visionaries Podcast. And a colleague of mine asked me, he said, why did you pick Dan to be, ask Dan to be first? I said, man, you don't know Dan. Dan is what I call the quintessential visionary, because no one truly understands what makes Dan tick. And I can't wait to ask you these amazing questions I've been ruminating on for such a long time since I've got a chance to.
I don't know.
I know you have no idea, right?
I have a clue.
First, let me just throw it out there that I just want to tell you that I'm honored that we've gotten to know each other. And I was on your podcast a year ago, and it kind of birthed me into the Westport community. And so I want to thank you for that very, very much from the bottom of my heart.
You rocked it.
Thank you.
We both get it.
We get it.
We understand community and we understand each other, and it's great, so thank you.
No, thank you. Definitely, thank you. So let's do it. So my first thought was, okay, I've been meeting up with this guy for quite some time now, but I always wonder, and I get this question a lot, who is Dan Wu to Dan Wu? Who are you to you? What is it that you see about yourself? Because other people, you know what I mean? Everybody has a perspective on how they see you. How do you see you? How do you see Dan Wu?
Man, I thought you were going to start with a softball.
I'm going in, baby. I'm going
in,
in, Dan. I'm going in.
I think I'm a storyteller and a community builder.
Okay.
I've spent my life in this community of Westport, Connecticut. I got a ton of stories.
Right?
I know a lot of people, and I see me as someone who can aggregate all these years of living here and talking to people and meeting people, and getting to know where all the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively, and then being able to sort of figure it all out and let other people in so that this can become a big community in which everybody feels a stake.
Right.
Everybody's got a story, Jay.
Yes.
Some people think they don't. Some people don't think their story is worth telling. But when you take all these individual stories together and you throw them in the mix and you throw them out to other people, all of a sudden we all get a better feeling of where we are.
Right.
We've got our work lives, we've got our families, but ultimately we are part of the community, and I think I see myself as someone who can play a role in bringing that community and the people in it together.
Right. I got that, because that was one of my thoughts was, I had in here to ask you, Dan, what's Dan's story? But Dan's story, and help me if I'm right here, Dan's unique value proposition for the town is Dan's story is actually shining light on everyone's story in the community. Is that kind of, it's like you're shining, because I realize what you just said. You want the people who aren't heard, you want their stories to be out to the world and to shine light on them. And I've seen you do that.
If we don't know who the people are around us,
Right.
how can you live in a community of strangers?
Oh,
If you don't know the high school kids,
right.
if you don't know the guy who just died, the 100-year-old
Yes.
Battle of the Bulge veteran
Right.
who's living right down the street, if you don't know the people who came here during COVID and why they came here and what they bring that's similar and different from the people who came here
50 years
after
ago.
in the post-war years.
Right. That's great, because that's what I was going to ask you next, Dan. It was more your origin. Help me understand, where did Dan Woog come from? Where were you born, raised? And, I don't know that part of your story.
It's all pure luck. What got any of us anywhere.
Right.
And my pure luck story actually has to do with Rod Serling of the Twilight Zone.
Really? Whoa.
He was a buddy of my father's
No.
at Antioch College
Okay.
in right after the war, World War II. And my parents were living with my mother's parents, the in-laws. They wanted to get out, and Rod Serling said to my dad, "Why don't you come to Westport? There are some building lots on High Point Road." So
That's how you got here.
they bought a building lot a few houses down from Rod Serling. So that's one part of the origin story. The other part is that purely by luck, High Point Road happened to be right behind Staples High School. The new Staples High School.
Wow.
It was just being built. And that, my parents had no idea what that would be.
Right.
But by growing up behind the high school, by playing on the athletic fields, and by sneaking into concerts, and by walking through that high school parking lot on my way to elementary school, I felt part of that world.
The community.
And that also helped me become who I was. So the luck of Rod Serling being friendly with my dad,
Right.
and the luck of him living on High Point Road, I would not be who I am without those two totally random pieces of life.
Wow. And how old were you when?
Three. I was
3 years old.
when-
Okay.
And High Point Road happened to be this road that was being built. All kinds of young families, each of whom had 2 or 3 or 4 kids.
Wow.
And the longest cul-de-sac in Westport, it's a mile long. So every house had kids. We had a dead-end street, so we could play in the street, we could ride our bikes.
Wow.
50 or 60 kids. It
was
a free-range childhood.
I love it. Free range
Find
childhood.
Somebody to feed us at dinner time, and then we go
Man.
outside.
Dan, you said free range childhood. I wish that could rub off on my son right now. Just free range. It's different. It's just different. Now I just picture riding bikes, going to your buddy's house. You see bikes over there, that's where you go, right? Like you just know where to go.
Not only, I rode my bike all over Westport.
Right.
I rode it to Longshore. I rode it to the beach. I had some friends who lived by the beach, so I would ride my bike there and spend the day there and then go home. It was like, Peanuts.
Yeah, exactly.
Without the parents.
Right.
No parents and Peanuts.
Right.
And it was such.
It was a great experience.
I'm sure, we remember the great parts of it. But I was very lucky to have grown up where and when I did, and I never forget those two things.
Any siblings?
2 younger sisters.
Okay.
Sister who's 2 years younger, lives
Okay.
in White Plains.
Oh, nice.
Photographer, great family.
Wow.
2 nephews. Another sister who's 7 years younger. She's in New Jersey. She's an immigration lawyer.
Okay.
She's got 2 daughters.
Got it.
And
So
yeah.
I had to go back because now we started kind of like your story, right? This taking other people's stories. then we go back to your story. Now, your current story. I have to ask you this question because this is something I want to ask everyone from this town. What would you say are the biggest pros Westport has to offer for growing families or people in general?
I'm going to mention the usual.
I got it.
The amenities,
Go
the beach, the library, the schools, longshore, all those amenities.
Pretty good taxes, house taxes,
Oh,
right?
really
I
well
always had to make sure.
managed.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But it all comes down to the people.
Yes.
This would not be the town that it is without the people. It's an affluent town.
Right.
It attracts people who are, have made their mark or making their mark, can afford to live here.
Right.
There's plenty of downsides to that. There's a ton of diversity in terms of backgrounds and all that. There's not a ton of socioeconomic diversity, and
That's something we have to
huge
deal
negative.
with. Yep.
But the people who come here are looking for something. They're looking for a community. They're looking for connections. They want their kids to grow up with strong values. They come here for the right reasons, and I think that's not always true of a lot of communities. There's some places where you just land.
Right.
The people here, I think, are intentional. They've come for the right reasons. They want to be part of the community. So to answer your question,
Yes.
it
Pros.
is the people.
It's the
Ultimately,
people.
it's the people.
It's the people. Interesting. I've also always said that placemaking actually starts. People always think you go to a place. I'm like, no, people make the place. Places don't make the people.
I'm going to remember that one.
Yeah, people make the place. Places don't make the people. And so that's why I had to have you on as well. Because if there's any person I know in this town, and I've asked hundreds of people, who would you say evokes that emotion that you just referred to, which is placemaking by the people, and that's you. And so I'm so thankful for you. And another reason why I'm thankful for you, again, is because that's how I feel I am. And so I need to always have allies. We got to make sure, when you're out there sometime, people are like, Jay, what made you create these organizations and these things? And I was like, well, if I didn't do it, who would do it? And I know also that I feel, and I think this is a magic you have, is that God or universe or whatever you believe in created us uniquely different. So a dream that I have, you might not have. You have your separate dreams. And so what I love is that I'm being able to lean in on a couple dreams with you that we also share in those kind of dreams. Can you talk a little bit about any new initiatives or anything that you have going on that you really feel the world needs to know about in a way, meaning we know about it here locally somewhat, but it's really a mission that we feel could be shared broadly?
Well, I think you and I both have a huge faith in young people.
Right. Yes.
The cliche, they're our future and all that. They really, really are.
Yeah.
And you and I have been working with some outstanding
Oh, yeah.
young people here in Westport to give them a voice.
Yes.
They have a voice. They don't always know that they can use it.
Right.
But they are the ones who are, it's going to be their world. I'm going to check out long before you do.
No, yeah,
But we're going to be gone.
we're going to be gone, exactly.
It's going to be their world.
Yeah.
We're leaving them, my generation is leaving them a
Right,
mess.
right.
For all our idealism, we screwed up big time.
Wow.
In a lot of ways. But the young people all over America.
Right.
The David Hoggs with his gun gun
I know.
safety advocacy. And
Yeah.
people like that are great. And the kids here in Westport, because of the advantages they've had, because of the access they've had to education,
Right.
influential people and all that, it is incumbent on them to really take that, what they've been given, and build on it, and then pass it along.
Right.
So to sort of roundabout answer your question, but in terms of what's
New initiatives.
ahead,
Right.
it's the kids.
It's the kids. Yeah, no, I second that thought. That's why we've come together, creating something very similar to like, I almost kind of echo it as imagine, I'll just say it. There's AA, there's organizations where people come together and they share their stories and then they refine their stories and they feel much more comfortable sharing it with the world. I would like to get to a point where we create the TED Teen Talks on this stage right here, which would be great, right? And I think that'd be a nice way to shine light on these stories for these teenagers. Because it's interesting that you and I talked about the vision for that initiative was more about everybody, all the views from the parents. And what we didn't hear from were the kids about these polarizing topics. And so I'm looking forward to that journey. That's gonna be good. Okay, last one. Where do you remember exactly where you were when you birthed 06880 into the world? This is a big one. Do you remember where you were when you wrote it down? Because I'm only saying that because me and my wife and all our community just wait daily to see this 06880 pop up.
Nice.
And so, tell me,
I had been writing for a long time a column in the local newspaper. This was 2009. And the future of, even then, I saw that the future of local journalism was not good. And I wanted to continue, my column was about local things and people and events and all that. And I wanted to continue to have a voice in the community. I was talking about it to a friend, and she said, "Why don't you start a blog?" And I said, "What's a blog?"
I was about to say, what's a blog? Around about what year was this? Do you remember?
2009.
2009, okay.
It was
Crisis, financial
February
crisis.
or March.
Right.
And, she explained the stories are at the top and it's interactive and people can comment. And I said, I don't know anything about it. And she said, WordPress.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So I checked it out. I taught myself over a weekend how to blog. Wrote the first post.
Wow.
Threw it out into the universe.
Right.
Was fortunate enough to send it to a small group of people, one of whom had a really good contact list of people in Westport, and sent it along to them. And within a day, I had 100 followers.
Wow.
So there was no turning back.
And of course not.
And again, a random chance. So that was 2009. Here we are, 2024.
15 years later.
17,000 stories later.
It's 17,000?
Some of them are short.
Right, but still, 17,000, you would say?
17,000 posts.
Did you hear that, audience?
Have
17,000.
Have not missed a day. And
So you're saying really 06880 could actually be 365? It's every day.
6 in 2024.
2024, right. Add an extra day.
Leap day.
We got the leap day. So 366 days a year.
Yeah.
This came out. Wow. Dan, what has it done for you? What is it, the fulfillment? How are you fulfilled by it? Is there, is it daily where you're challenged to put it out, or is it always giving you new gifts in a way?
That is a fantastic question. And the answer is, it has opened my world.
Oh my God.
It has
That's
introduced
good.
me to amazing people like Jay Norris. It has given me many new perspectives. I'm much less black and white than I was when I started.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was my side and my people, and
Right.
the other side. And now I see a lot of different nuances.
That's, let me tell you, it's so interesting, Dan, because I sit and now I get all the polarizing topics coming at me when people meet me, right? And they'll go, "You're cool with Dan?" "Oh, I see you're cool with Dan." And I'm like, "You're not cool with," so I asked the question, "You're not cool with Dan? What's going on?" And they said, "Well, he's always writing about," and I said, "Oh, he's writing about something you don't care for." So I put the question back on them. And they say to me, "Yeah, how could he believe in that mission?" I said, "Guys, you don't get Dan. That's not his job to understand what makes someone tick. His job is to give a voice to the voiceless." All right? And they look at me and they go, "Oh, you were a Dan lover." You know, that kind of thing. And I love, anyway, so I'm just telling you that because that's another reason I wanted you on the show, is because I really want people to understand what Dan does and what makes Dan tick and why he does it. That it's really shining light on everyone in the community. And if you don't believe, I tell people, you don't prescribe to other people having a voice, then that's okay. That's your prerogative. But don't doubt, don't shun or defame someone that has a different opinion than you. And I tell them that because I say, I'm not going to take it. So it's cool. So you can stay in your box if you want to, in your box. I'm going to stay in this broad box where everyone gets an opportunity, even if it's an opposing view that I don't like. I'm okay with hearing it. And so I want to thank you, Dan, for coming and actually doing it in this micro local lens. But to me, it's a broader message that the actual world needs to be more open. It needs to have more pattern recognition, like what works, what doesn't work, and let's lean in and let's be more like 06880 and Dan Woog in the future.
I am so honored to be here. And
Yes.
the tagline of 06880 is where Westport meets the world.
Ah, there we go.
So
Let's drop that one.
not even knowing it,
I didn't even know. Westport meets the world.
Where Westport
There we go.
meets the world.
I love this. Dan Wu, I'm honored once again to have you. And I'm looking forward to the next one. Because let's keep bringing it, my friend.
We will keep
Let's
bringing
do it. Give me a hug, bro.
All right.
Give me a hug. Love, man. Appreciate you.
Sounds good.
Let's party tonight.
Thank you. I'm there.